Hi there. Thank you all so much for letting me for letting us have this morning together. I'm Pádraig Belton. I write about technology and business, mainly for the BBC. I just did a story actually about Black founders and funders. So this is something I've been thinking about a lot. And last night's presidential debate made me excited to try my own hand at moderating. So this is timely. I've always liked writing about startups, people coming up with brilliant ideas and living the dream. And I was just thinking this morning that Black and minority founders are that story turned up to 11, because whatever drive and determination and resilience that every startup founder needs, you need even more as a person of color who is getting out of whatever boxes people along the way have tried to put them in, and said, you can put me in any box you want. I'm going to get out of that box, and that drive is just going to empower me, which is exactly what one founder said to me when I was writing my last story. So these are wonderful stories that come out of the Black and minority founder community. So I'm very excited to spend a bit of time thinking about it. We have we have some excellent people from the funding scene. So I wonder if I could just quickly introduce them, and then we have, I think, 5 or 6 questions that everyone might have a bite at. I think the general theme that we're going to look at in this panel is how to approach investors and how to decide what kind of investor is right for your business. And to answer that question, we have this incredibly excellent panel. I'll first introduce Martijn de Wever, who is founder and chief executive of Fourth Over Mass Capital and Floww. He has had both jobs since 2013, and he was named by Dow Jones as Europe's most active early stage investor. He leads a team committing to sourcing and backing startups that outperform competitors, and their portfolio is characterized by companies that combine transformational technology with strong business models. And, hello. And so he is he's our first panelist, and he thinks quite a lot about how startups can reach the right investors using metrics like team diversity, milestones reached, and raising the right funding for the right reasons. So thank you so much for joining us, Martijn.
Good morning.
And next up, we've got Hector Mason, who is an associate at Episode 1 Ventures. When at university, he discovered a way to beat the bookies, he says, which ultimately funded his first startup, Tasky, which is an on-demand jobs marketplace. In 2017, Hector founded a tech consultancy that he later sold. He did a stint in innovation consultancy and is now investing in early-stage startups for Episode 1 Ventures, which is a London-based seed-stage VC fund with previous investments that include CarWow, Test, Cloud&C's Zoopla, and even Shazam. He runs Seed Stage, which is a demo day without an accelerator, backed by some of the UK's leading VCs. Hello, Hector.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hi. We also are incredibly happy to have Charmaine Hayden, who's a founding partner at GOODsoil VC. She describes their fund as being dedicated to minimizing funding disparities in tech by investing in startups with high growth potential whose founders are women, people of color, LGBT, or otherwise disenfranchised. And by the time GOODsoil was founded, Charmaine had already built 2 incredibly popular diversity brands: Face for Music, which is a 5-time award-winning ethnic and curve model agency, and Gold Digger Power Circle, which is a hub for female entrepreneurs, before many people were even thinking about raising the diversity conversation. So hello, Charmaine, it's nice to meet you in person. Well, virtually in person. In person as we get these days. And we also have Namratha Kothapalli, who's an associate with Speedinvest. She's an investor focused on deep tech and enterprise software at Speedinvest, which is an early stage VC fund with more than 400 million euro to invest in visionary tech startups all across Europe. They have a portfolio of over 100 companies, and the team specializes in giving hands-on operational support to startups. And Namratha herself has extensive experience as a software engineer and has worked across the stack at Intel, HP, and Dell EMC. She's a master's in computer science and more recently completed her MBA at London Business School. Hello, Namratha.
Hey, hi everyone. Morning.
And we also have Kathy. I think do we have Kathy, or is it this? Okay, so that is an excellent panel, and I'm so excited to be able to spend a couple of minutes thinking about questions together, which I know are incredibly pertinent and important ones for founders who are thinking about approaching funders at different stages, and this actually leads us really well into maybe a first question that I would love to hear some of you think about, which is, when is the right time for founders to start considering fundraising? When should founders start looking for funders, and when should they be focusing instead on other questions like their idea, their model, their competitive advantage? When's the right time? Namratha, do you want to start first, since I introduced you last?
Sure, yeah, of course. A few things about when is the right time to start fundraising, assuming that this is fundraising with investors. I think it's common knowledge that it's not actually always the right time to fundraise. If you're an early stage startup with no customers, no technology that doesn't quite work yet, it's probably not a good time to start raising any serious money from investors. Without sort of proven customers, investors will likely perceive it as a high risk in some cases, which might lead to investors wanting or asking for huge pieces of the company, which might not work out best for startups and the investors long term. So I'd highly recommend speaking with angel investors first. Easier to it's sort of a more informal community, so to speak, where you can get direct feedback if you genuinely ask for it, and then approach VCs or institutional investors when you actually do have some sort of a product that you can show, even if it's an MVP or early customers or users that are using your product. So when you present your case to the investors, you can sort of de-risk the investment slightly and give them a bit more market validation, if you will. So I would say that would be leave you in a better position as a founder to take the investment on a much more favorable term.
There's wonderful thoughts, especially that your idea that angel investors are somehow a more informal community and might give you more direct feedback at an earlier stage. I quite like that, and I'm sure that will be helpful. Has Charmaine just managed to join us? If so, I could bring her in and introduce her.
Okay.
Hello, Charmaine. How are you? I hadn't. I don't think I'd. Oh, sorry. No, we had it. It was Kathy that I was thinking that hadn't joined us. But yes, Charmaine, what are your thoughts on start considering fundraising?
I guess the first thing is whether or not they actually, in fact, need funding, and what type of funding that they do want, and whether or not they can bootstrap and how long for, and then also looking at how much runway a fundraise would give them. Sometimes it's better to raise a big round rather than loads of small ones, increasing dilution. Sorry, because everyone else's camera looks off from this angle, I'm on. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the key things for me. And then also, I really think that compare fundraising to a romantic relationship, in the fact that you should be dating investors and making sure that that if you're gonna have a marriage with them, a long-term relationship, then you actually really enjoy each other's company, that you believe in their thesis, you believe they believe in yours, and that you have some commonalities, but also into friction. I think that those are really key points also.
That's brilliant, and I love that, because there's a founder I was talking to for a story a couple of months, early in the pandemic during lockdown, and she was saying that as a founder she loved everything moving to Zoom, because she wasn't just racing to San Francisco all the time to meet different angel investors. She could speed date, because this was her second company, so she was thinking more in terms of which investors would be a good match. So yeah, she thought about it as just sort of staying computer all day and speed dating different potential investors until she found kind of that element of click. Those are excellent thoughts. I liked your thought very much about thinking about whether you can bootstrap and for how long and how much runway you have, which are hugely handy. Martijn, do you want to come in on this? What are your thoughts about what's the right time for a founder to start considering fundraising? Do you have your mic on, Martijn?
Now I do. I was saying, I think it is important that you start working on your storyline and expressing your vision very early on. Most tech companies require quite substantial amounts of funding. So the sooner you actually can get started bringing that message across, the better. I quite like that analogy actually with dating and with long-term relationships with the people that back you. I don't think it's only the storyline for getting capital, but it's the same vision and passion that you need to express also to get other people actually behind you, such as the team, for instance, or advisors that advise you along the way. So it's all about, you want to have a dream and you want to make it happen. That you need to evangelize the second you actually have that vision, and the pitch is just an element of it, and fundraising is just an element of actually getting that message across.
Fun. So we've had two votes for the analogy of dating and bringing passion to your relationship with good. Hector, I'm sorry to leave you to last. What are your thoughts about the right time? When is the time right?
Yeah, I think I echo everyone else's thoughts. And that's what usually happens when you go last. Everyone else has said all the important points, which is great. I think the important thing is, as Charmaine was saying, is an important question to ask yourself is, do I actually need to raise a tool? And so I think an obvious time to raise and an obvious reason to raise is if you need to build tech. So if you need to bring on a developer, perhaps you're not technical yourself, then it might be sensible to raise some angel money so that you can build the tech out in a sort of timely fashion, because that might get you to a point where once you sort of enter the fundraising bandwagon, hopefully that angel round will get your tech to a point where perhaps you have some early customers or an MVP, something slightly more tangible to kind of raise your next round of financing on. So I think if you've got tech to build, that's one reason to raise some money. But equally, I think it's also a good idea to get as far as you can without raising money, because you're answerable to no one.
I quite like that. About being answerable to no one, and maybe the angel round, getting it to a point where you've got early customers. I wonder actually if should we do you've mentioned that maybe some other people had some good ideas. I wonder if we might do the order backwards for the next question then, and start with Hector again first. And that question is, there are different sources of funding, different sources of funders, angels, crowdfunding, VCs, and obviously some speak to different points in the journey, but maybe some might overlap slightly. I quite liked our thought earlier that maybe I think this is from Namratha, that the angel community is a little more informal and more at home, tweaking ideas and maybe engaging in that kind of back and forth process. But I wonder, could I ask each of you how to decide between the different sorts of funders who are out there. There's angel investors, crowdfunders, VCs, institutional investors. Maybe I'm not even thinking about other sorts like asset managers, private equity. How do you decide between this exciting map when you go off to begin your investing speed dating journey? Hector, do you have the first?
Shall I pick that up? Yeah, so I think that's been one of the big developments over the last 5-10 years, is sort of the number of ways that you can raise money, and I think it's been a very good thing. And so typically people do raise angel rounds first, I think, because it's the easiest access to money, because there are lots of people with money trying to get a return on it, and there are all sorts of tax incentives. So I think if you can, Googling angel syndicates and trying to find your way into the inbox of some angel investors can be a really good first step. And also they'll be rooting for you for your whole journey, hopefully, and they'll be able to offer you lots of advice and introductions and that sort of thing. I think crowdfunding is very interesting as well. I think particularly for B2C, and even actually as you get further along your journey and perhaps you've raised a number of rounds of finance already, I think crowdfunding can become a really useful marketing tool. And you suddenly, if you have 1,000 crowdfunding investors in your company, those 1,000 people are going to be really keen users of your product or service, and they're probably going to be brand evangelists and spreading the word and trying to get their mate to join the company that they've invested in. So I think that's a really useful element of crowdfunding. And then one of the other ones that's sometimes less obvious is venture debt. And that's when if you have a model where you can prove that if you pour in this much money, you get out more money. So you convert sort of £1 of ad spend into £5 of revenue to you. Then venture debt can be a really interesting way to scale without giving away equity in your business. And you have to be careful with that, because there are if things don't end up going well, then you can end up with sort of nasty terms. But I think there are all sorts, and I'll leave some other stuff for other people as well.
Are you sure?
Ian, no, I liked quite a lot of that, and especially your point about those tax incentives for angel investors, and you get them on board, and they might be rooting for you your whole journey. That's great. Martijn, can I bring you in on this one? And,
I must say, Hector did a pretty good job actually covering the different benefits actually and the different stages that are necessary actually for funding your company. Indeed, angels go first. Sometimes you use crowdfunding if you're a B2C type of business, because then you can use the crowd actually to get your brand out there. And then you enter into the VC stages. And indeed, there are newcomers actually coming to the market that also want to fund innovation. I think that will change more and more over time, as if we zoom out and see venture as a bucket that people put into their investment portfolios. That interest into that bucket is increasing substantially. So you could see other players starting to nibble a little bit on this space, getting more banks involved actually with products that are suitable for startups, or other players that are now sitting on the sidelines and would like to get the knowledge of how they can actually learn more about startups and investing in startups. I do think liquidity is a very important element in that. That is something that we work on at Floww, for instance, very much, of finding a solution that we can get more liquidity into the system in a way by providing transparency. And then over time, you can make sure that more money can actually enter this space and get more interesting innovation from all sorts of angles. So my 2 cents on the equation. Yeah.
I love that, and it's interesting to bring in banks kind of into the conversation, which is I don't think we'd mentioned yet. Charmaine, will I bring you in? What are your thoughts on this question, the different sorts of investors on offer and how to pick?
It depends on who you are and what type of founder you are. Of course, it's an access-all event. It's important to say that some people can really easily access friends and family rounds and angel rounds and others are, obviously disparaged a little. So sometimes that's a little bit more creative in terms of their fundraising aims. But in terms of fundraising, I guess most people just are trying to get it where they can. We talk about it as though there is this clear structure, but of course it doesn't look like that. And in landscapes where we're dealing with diverse candidates, they literally have to take what they can get, and sometimes have to try and start at if they can't get angel or family rounds.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I like a lot of that. It depends on who you are and what kind of founder you are, and it isn't just about the investor. It's also about you. Namratha, what do you think about this question? What sort of investors on offer? How do you pick?
A lot of great points have been already covered, but I'd like to elaborate one point that Hector mentioned. So it's not always easy for startups to understand if you're a VC candidate, if that makes sense. Are you a good candidate for a VC? What does that exactly mean? When you look at like the fund economics, for example, like for a VC to have a go for an investment, they expect 10 or 20 times return on investment, which means you need to build a scalable business that will give you solid returns, solid margins, etc. You will find out only when you start having conversations with VCs. So I highly recommend not speaking with the best VCs upfront. If you have your dream VCs, don't speak with them initially. Start speaking with the ones that maybe you don't like as much or less in love with. Iterate, sort of iron out all the kinks in your pitch and deck after every meeting, sort of find out what questions they have, what concerns they have, what are the things that they're pushing back on. Create your story, have rock solid answers addressing all of them, and then go meet the VCs that you think are relevant fits.
No, I like that quite a lot, and it leads in, I think, maybe into the next question that we were keen to think about, which is what is the best way to get in touch with VCs? This can be, I imagine, for first-time founders especially, this could be I don't know, very, very daunting, and just the mechanics of contacting a VC out of the blue. How do you? What's best for first-time funders? Is it just sending that cold email? Is it just looking for referrals? Is it demo days? Is it other things? Charmaine, I don't think we've started with you yet, so could we let you go first in this round and then sort of jumble between? Have you got your mic on, Charmaine?
Right, there you go.
I don't know if we've got.
Quite a few.
Sorry about that.
Please repeat your question.
Sure. So, if you're a first-time founder, how should you go about approaching a VC? Just send cold emails, or try to find mutual contacts, or demo days, or is it other things entirely? What's the best way to start that conversation, to go looking for VCs?
I think it's going to definitely be a mixture of a few different methods. I would try cold calling. I would talk to anyone in my network who may know someone in venture. Definitely use social media, and in events like this where there are networking capabilities, and just talk to people. I think that it's important to start to do the fundraising way ahead of when you actually want to raise your funds, because no one really wants to invest in a stranger really large amounts. So if someone getting to know each other takes place, and again we go back to the dating aspect, it's just about kind of understanding what people are. So building a rapport, genuine rapport with people by attending multiple events with them and speaking to them on social media, kind of get a feel of who you are, and of course sending emails as well. Try and put people's interest and appetite.
That's brilliant. I liked when you said that no one wants to invest in a stranger. That's a lovely sentence. Namratha, do you want to come in on this? What's the best way would you suggest to founders to go about contacting VCs?
Sure. I think, unfortunately, most people seem to come through warm intros in VC. And yeah, I don't highly recommend it. It's an unfortunate thing, which I guess is why we're all here speaking about being founders. Highly recommend leveraging your network. Also, cold emails, right? Find out which VCs would be the right fit for the stage of the company, the focus area of the company, the geo as well. And when you send out cold emails, like tailored email to suit the investor that you're reaching out to, and make sure it's quite structured. What's your ask? And why is there a fit? And like, what's the problem you're solving? What's the opportunity? Why this team? And a clear sort of call to action, if you will, and tailor the event to the fund so you can ensure like a high response rate. VCs presumably get a lot of inbound. Most of it is slightly generic, so finding that out would be like super useful to make sure that we get a response, so to speak. And I think we also made a comment on how raising a fundraising around is like dating. I think it's actually also like a sales process. Like, look at it as a funnel. Basically, your first is one of your inbound sales strategy is cold emailing, but also look at other options. Maybe there's writing, tweeting online, this posting on LinkedIn, etc. Maybe you're friends with someone who knows other VCs or people that can make these connections. So absolutely reach out, leverage your network, and things of that nature.
I feel like I'm learning as much about dating strategy as I am about being a founder. This is great stuff. I should have known years ago. Martijn, do you want to pop in on this one? What's the best way to get out of the inbox when it comes to VCs?
I've been fascinated actually about this problem, right? Because first I set up a VC firm and quickly realized that VC firms are quite small as organization types. And you have a capacity issue. So you have just a few people to analyze quite a large population of companies. So you have a huge workload actually ahead of you. And what has happened traditionally is that VC said, okay, we need to do a first skim. We need to make sure that we do a first selection of companies that actually get on our desk. And then we have a look at that. And that first selection is usually a referral basis. That made me think actually of setting up another business, which is Floww, which addresses specifically that problem and many other capacity and productivity problems for VCs and startups, where you say, okay, can we solve that problem that we can move away from referral, where everybody gets a chance actually to be in front of a VC. And essentially today's event, for instance, as well. So all the startup have gone through the process actually, which is meant by Floww, where we have done the heavy lifting actually of analyzing and getting the right data in the right format so that VCs can actually see every company that is out there and that they are not biased by their own network, for instance. So it's a fascinating problem. And the interesting bit, it is not about preference of VCs, but more about capacity issues that they need to solve. It is interesting to see in the room as well where a referral basis is and remains usually the main source actually for new companies, and hopefully we can change that with Floww. But let's see.
Those are interesting points about VCs having capacity issues, and of course you've looked at it yourself. Hector, I think what do you think? Not to put you in last place again.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Martin's point about capacity is interesting because so, for example, in episode 1, I'm the only associate, and part of my job is to go through as many of these companies as possible so we don't let things slip through the net. And I think I mean, the whole thing about the warm intros in venture capital kind of, I think, splits opinion, or I think people are sort of divided on it. You know, I mean, we look at pretty much everything that comes through the door. I mean, people can submit things through the website, and we do look at it. There will often be a considerable delay on looking at it because it is seen as slightly lower priority stuff, because the hit rate on those cold inbound is slightly lower. But I think, just to the point of how do you reach a VC, I think network is critical, and actually, as you build your business, you're likely going to need to build a network anyway, whether that's to win customers or to hire the right people and get to know those hiring prospects. So the earlier you get, the better. And as Charmaine was saying, I think try and find someone who does have a route in, perhaps. But I think also, you know, that there are routes.
You might have switched your mic off.
I think I was muted then. And so the other routes in, if you just don't have any way of getting a warm intro, certainly go to demo days, these sorts of events like the seed stage, where you're able to apply. Anyone can apply. You can be put in front of a large number of investors in one go. And then there's also platforms like DexSender and Venture Market, which a good number of VCs look at and are plugged into.
Great, thanks. I think I might combine now, because I know we could go all day really, and you will have such wonderful ideas. I'm learning so much from you, and I thank you so much for this. But I'm also told we're not meant to go all day, which is sad. But I might combine two questions just to make a bit of progress. And the first is, what do you think of pitch decks? Are they necessary? How are they helpful? What's the ideal content if you're a founder coming up with a pitch deck? So that's question one. And then the second question is, what about after that first meeting? If it goes well, what do you have to do then to convert that good first meeting into a term sheet offer? And I wonder if, just jumbling up, can we start with Martijn and then go Namratha, Hector, Charmaine? Martijn, do you want to go first?
The pitch deck, you will write so many different iterations of that. It's an iterative process, and you constantly evolve your business, and therefore you constantly change that pitch deck, and that's how you communicate about your company, right? So the pitch deck is almost like your blueprint of how you would like to get your message across to the other party. It's extremely important. It's not something you do in a couple of hours and then send off to somebody. It does have specific things that you need to tick off. So there is your problem solution, etc., some traction, and how much you're raising, and in particular items you need to have in there. But the key thing is, and that's the art of pitching, I guess, is how do I get my enthusiasm and love for what I do on paper and not face-to-face. Now, when you're doing it face-to-face, then obviously, hopefully, that energy can be transferred from you to the person actually who's hopefully going to fund you. And if you really love your product, that comes across and people really want to put money into you. But to do that in a piece of writing and to do that, to get that message across in a pitch deck is extremely difficult. And therefore, you need to take the time actually and read it over and over again, have other people read it to see if that actually resonates well, and if people understand what you're trying to have the reader read into that vision that you have. Yeah.
I love it. And Namratha, what are your thoughts here on those 2 points?
Oh, absolutely. I agree with Martijn. Also, I've been an engineer for a really long time. I'm not good with pitch decks. I'm really bad with PowerPoints, for example. So I'm very happy to see founders get creative about this. Like, I'm okay if it's like a video, for example, a 10-minute video where we're just pitching it. Where maybe like us in the team can rewatch it and like make notes, etc. Also, like Notion, for example, or like a one-pager that has enough information. That's great as well. Either way, I think like Martijn said, if you can convey your story, why you believe that this is the best company to invest in, if you can convey that to the other side. I think that's the winning formula, whatever that if you take any format.
Brilliant, thank you. I love it. Hector, what are your thoughts here? So first on the pitch deck, and then turning that good first meeting into a firm offer.
Yes, I definitely echo what the others have said, and I think that one sort of thought experiment, once you've kind of got a sort of outline of your pitch deck, is just to go over it as devil's advocate and start trying to pick holes in your own company, trying to find the flaws. And then one of the most impressive things that we see founders do is when they recognize those flaws and they have really coherent answers to those flaws. So maybe it's, yes, we know that we're not doing this well, but here's what we're going to do about it. And once we've done this, then we can achieve that. Hearing founders speak like that is one of the most impressive things. And I think putting that sort of, and on top of that, having a real flow through the deck of kind of, here's what we've done so far with very little, here's what we're going to do over the next 12, 24, 36 months. And then you also want to spend some time portraying the grand vision, because lots of investors are going to be looking for huge moonshot bets when they're evaluating companies. And then in terms of converting that first meeting, it's a question of convincing. Investors are emotional people, so do your very best to persuade them that you're going to stop at nothing to build something really enormous. And if you can persuade them and you can get them emotionally attached to the idea and you as a founder and the business, then you'll have a good chance of getting that next meeting.
That's great. There was a lot I loved in that, like starting to pick holes in your own company and recognize them and having a coherent answer, and then recognizing that investors are emotional people. Those are great. Charmaine, what do you think on this point?
So I do like a pitch deck. I like to see a good visual. It's the way I absorb information best. But I also know a few people who really don't like pitch decks. People have like a Notion or something like that. So I think it's all about tailoring to the investors as individuals. So the same way we're looking at them as they're having emotions, we're also looking at us as humans, and just realizing that actually all of us pick up information in different ways with different definitive answers that will persuade or convince each of us a little bit differently to one another, and that it's not a one size fits all. And I agree that it's definitely good to be able to see someone pick apart their business or their startup idea and show you put the effort in. I did have a founder recently who said that they don't send pitch decks. They think it's a waste of their time, and they don't complete forms. And I said, well, that's great. And I guess it for another investor that will work really well. Everybody has their systems in place, and for that specific investor, that makes them feel that is showing that you are willing to go the extra mile. And creating a pitch deck is not an easy process. Doing a clear breakdown of exactly the good things about your company, as well as the things that maybe aren't so great. It takes a lot of bravery and thought and teamwork. I wouldn't spend too much time, and I wouldn't worry too much about how things look. But obviously, it's nice to have something that's easy on the eye, especially because we get so many throughout a day, a week, a year, a lifetime. It's good for us to be able to kind of get to it really quickly and have it something that's easy on the eye.
There you go. Well, the dating analogies keep going. So it's good to be easy on the eye and no one size fits all. So that's great. I know we could go all day, but I know there's another panel keen to come on. Shall I maybe give each of us maybe 20 seconds to wrap up, and your very quick concluding thoughts? But what advice you give to startups, and how do we solve the issue of fairer access to capital? I know we could go all morning with this, and someday we will, but maybe in 20 seconds. Namratha, do you want to go first?
I guess if I had like one big takeaway since I joined VC is that it's okay not to be right for every investor. You just need one investor, and not every investor will be like they are due diligence, like VCs are due diligencing companies. I think it's on the founding teams also to sort of due diligence the VCs and the partners or the people that will be working closely with them. So it's a two-way street up, absolutely. And the second point would be like set a time limit for the raise. VC is, I guess, signaling in VC and groupthink is absolutely real, and you can obviously take advantage of this, but don't be dragged in the due diligence process for months. Set a time, get out of it. You can get back in maybe at a later point when you have strong like a story and a narrative to share with the VC firms. Yeah.
That's great. Charmaine, what are your concluding thoughts on these 2 points?
I think that make sure that when seeking investment, it's really important to make sure that you're seeking investment based on your idea rather than basing your idea around seeking investment. And then in terms of creating an even playing field, I think that there is a top-down approach, and the LPs, those who are making a lot of decisions, including private office and angels, are kind of looking to see how they can better interact with alternative venture firms, to be able to really churn in on great founders rather than just diverse founders. So if someone is focusing on a diverse base, they've probably got a bulking pipeline, and they're not just headhunting random people that fit a brief to make them look like they have a more diverse venture funding landscape. I think that's all for me.
That's great. Thank you for those. Hector, what are your concluding thoughts?
Yeah, I just think let's keep on promoting these kind of open source events where anyone can apply, lots of people see them, and hopefully less people will slip through the net.
That's brilliant. And Martijn, do you want to sum up for us all this morning?
No, I think it's all about the founders, right? So as long as founders have passion for what they do and love for the product and really that drive to make it happen, that's what you're going to read in a founder. If they have that in them, they're fundable by angels, by other sources of funding. Everybody wants to fund people that really want to push the boundaries of actually making their dreams come true, and the people that believe in them.
Those are excellent thoughts for us to conclude on. Thank you all so much for teaching us all so very much. And thank you, Padlis, for spending such an extremely enjoyable hour with me. I look forward very much to it. And so from me, thank you and good morning.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.